Hi, this is Paul Slatkis, and Good News Planner. I'm speaking to Scott Tomah. Hi, Scott. How are you?
Doing well. How are you doing, Paul?
Okay, good. You're a financial services area over at Edward Jones, and we're going to talk today about retiring. And can people still retire?
Yes, they do, but it's an interesting point you just brought up. Retirement means different things to different people now. Many are still working in retirement. It's not the traditional sitting on your porch and watching the time go by. It's very different now.
How does the age, that the potential for living longer seems to be going up each year, which is good news, and hopefully healthily, and in good health. Well, how does someone now deal with the whole scenario of retirement?
Well, you brought up a great point. People are living longer. They are spending a lot more time in retirement, which is a positive, but also presents some challenges. What you're trying to do with your investment portfolio is ensure that it provides for your income as long as you need it. So really what we try to do is make sure your planning period is long. You might plan until age 90, for example, or longer, and just ensure that your portfolio can provide for your needs today, but also your needs 25 years from now.
Okay. So what does someone need? So let's start with a young person. Let's start in their 30s, 20s, 30s. What's the first thing that should happen?
Well, essentially, the first thing that should happen is to have a strategy in place and to understand the asset that you have may not be money, but it's time. The biggest asset you have is the time, and so don't view retirement as, well, it's 40 years from now, I'll put that off until later. The earlier you start, the better off you're going to be.
Okay. And then how about now someone, the biggest one of the biggest one is you buy a house, right?
Exactly.
And then so buy a house in college seemed to me to be my the tough ones in my life.
Mm-hmm.
One is you hopefully help pay for the college, and two is you have this asset sitting there, and you really don't want to cash in your asset because you need a place to live, right?
Exactly, and so I think what it's all about in those age frames is balancing goals that you have. You're going to be saving for your kids' education, you have the expenses and the mortgage and everything else. Sitting down with an advisor and understanding what are my expenses and what am I trying to achieve, then he or she can help outline, well, what do I need to save for each of these? And if I can't, well, what are some trade-offs that I might have to put in place? Maybe I retire a little bit later. Maybe I provide for a little bit less of the education. Maybe I spend a little bit less in retirement. But instead of just questioning and sort of hoping for the best, by having that strategy in place and at least can provide you with that foundation that you can then add to over time.
Let's go to the baby boomers, okay? Because millions of baby boomers it seems like it's a growing community as you and I speak, and seniors in general. So those are really if they didn't in their 50s now, late 50s, they're just been living paycheck to paycheck. What happens to those that are just living paycheck to paycheck?
Well, they are going to have some options from Social Security, but I think, again, like we talked about with the people in the 30s, it's really looking at your expenses and understanding what are needs and what are wants and where there might be some flexibility. They may have to work a little bit longer, but again, the definition of retirement is changing, and so they may want to stay active in retirement, and that could provide not only a higher Social Security benefit if they delay taking Social Security, but also more time for their investments to potentially grow. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that you're not saving for retirement to beat the S&P 500 or to accumulate a large pool of money. You're saving for your future income. So the better you understand what your income needs are going to be in retirement, the better you can understand how much you really need to save to provide for those needs.
Scott, tell us a little bit about Edward Jones.
Well, we're a firm based in St. Louis. We have the largest number of financial advisors. We have about 12,000, and we tend to be located not only in small communities but also in big communities, so there likely is a financial advisor close to you. We have a long-term conservative quality focus, and so what we want to do is to try to develop a strategy that's going to make sense based on what your goals and objectives are.
Is there a large expense for using your service? So someone decides, say, a baby boomer says, I don't really know how to handle this or to deal with this. Well, what do they do?
Well, there's no expense to call up an advisor and to start working on a strategy. And there's different costs for different investments, but what you want to do is to work with an advisor. Our goal is to try to make sure you understand what are the risks of the investment, what are the costs of the investment, and how do they fit within your strategy. We're not looking for day traders or for investors that are trying to make a quick dollar. What we want to do is work with a serious investor who has a longer-term goal and then focus on what investments make sense based on that specific goal.
And when we talk to the investor, we talk about in a marriage situation, husband and wife, sitting there and discussing it with you?
Exactly. We'd love to have the whole family together because different investments may affect the different investors differently. I may be very comfortable with risk, but my wife may be very risk averse, and we need to get everybody on the same page and comfortable with it. Typically what you find is the biggest risk to a strategy is not the market, it's our own emotions. So how do we control those as we're working towards achieving our goal?
You know, some people were fortunate enough and wise enough to, create IRAs and had some retirement funds and pension funds and so on and so forth. And I believe, 62? When can you start taking some of that money out a little more tax-friendly? Do you run to that money or do you hold on that money?
Well, again, it depends on your needs and what you're trying to achieve. 62 is the earliest age for Social Security. 59 is the earliest age for your IRA. But if you think about what we talked about earlier, retirement is lasting longer. We want to make sure that your money not only provides for your needs at 59 or 62, but also for your needs whenever you're 89 or 92. So it's understanding what can I reasonably spend today and how can I provide for my needs today, but also invest appropriately and spend appropriately so that I have my money at 92 as well.
Excellent. Two other thoughts here. Any other thought you'd like to share?
Well, the first thing I would say is there's a quote I like which says, "A goal without a plan is just a wish." And a wish is not a great investment strategy. So although you may be a little bit afraid to visit an advisor because you don't know what you're going to hear, the only way you can make adjustments and the only way you can know if you're on track is by laying out your strategy and meeting with a financial advisor. So take the time to do that first.
All righty. Then last question. What's good news for you, Scott?
Well, I have 3 young children and a wonderful wife, so good news for me is knowing that I have a strategy in place to take care of them.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. And the website we'll link over to is edwardjones.com?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, have a happy holiday season, and thanks for your advice.
Thank you, Paul.